We have some more NHL players on waivers for purpose of buyout. We have an NHL signing, and we have word on several pretty good RFAs that were not qualified by their NHL teams and will now become free agents for tomorrow, October the 9th. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. We have some more breaking news from around the NHL. We have buyouts, a signing, and several RFAs that are going to become UFAs since they were not qualified. There's some pretty decent players in that mix, which will make Free Agents Friday here coming up tomorrow even that much more interesting. Now, the buyouts that we have for today, let's start with New Jersey Devils buying out the final 2 years of goaltender Cory Schneider. Now, Schneider's been really having a rough time of it here for the last few years. He had a really long stretch without winning a hockey game. He spent some time in the minors, battled a lot of hip injuries, and he's just not the same goaltender he used to be. So they've decided to cut ties here and buy out those 2 years. He was making $6 million per year. So instead of having 2 years at $6 million, they're now going to have him on the books for 4 years because it's twice the period of time, but it's 2/3 the money. So they're going to have a cap hit of $2 million for 4 seasons instead of a cap hit of $6 million for 2, and it opens up a spot, obviously, for them to sign another goaltender to work with Mackenzie Blackwood here with the Devils organization. There's going to be plenty of goaltenders for them to look at during free agency to consider coming in either as a 1A, 1B, or as a backup, or what they decide to go do there. But Schneider's time in New Jersey is done. He will become a UFA. I have to think that there's probably a slim chance he gets another contract, but you never know. There's lots of goalies looking for work, and it's hard to say what teams are going to do. Now, the other buyout today was the Columbus Blue Jackets announcing that they're placing center iceman Alexander Wenberg on waivers for the purpose of buyout. I mean, that contract really wasn't great from the get-go, in my opinion. He was signed to a $4.9 million deal, and he had 3 years remaining left on that contract. So it's going to be a pretty extensive buyout, but the year-by-year breakdown actually isn't too bad. Instead of having 3 more years at 4.9, the first 3 years will only be around $450,000 hit, and then the 3 years after that will be $891,000. So he's going to be on their books for 6 years, but for the next 3, while he would have been there anyway, the hit is pretty low. So it is actually pretty decent in that respect. It's not going to weigh them down with too much dead cap space. But Wenberg's still a decent player. I won't be surprised if he gets an opportunity and gets signed, but he can get a more appropriate contract, and play a more appropriate role for what he's capable of. But, he had a really good year a few years back before getting that contract. And I guess when you have younger players coming into their entry-level deals, that's the risk sometimes. You get 1 year of brilliance looking really solid, and they can't sustain that kind of production, and then it certainly hurts longer term. But I think Wenberg can bounce back and be an effective NHL player at a lower salary here with somebody. I'm sure he'll get an opportunity. Now, the signing we have for today, as well as the Montreal Canadiens announcing that they've signed defenseman Noah Juulsen to a 2-way contract for 1 more year. Obviously, it's a league minimum when he's at the NHL salary. So clearly, that's an important piece to keep in their system. They've made some defense upgrades. Wouldn't be surprising if Juulsen again spends a big chunk of the season playing in the minor leagues. He's going to have a hard time cracking an NHL roster, given the fact they've now brought in Joel Edmondson as well. They still have Brett Kulak, Victor Mete. They have Romanov coming into the mix. Considering the other moves that the Habs have made with their blue line, I think Juulsen may have a tough time cracking the Habs lineup, unless he gets that third pair spot on the right side, which is a possibility, I guess. But we will see. I mean, there's plenty of capable defensemen now in Montreal, and they're going to end up either having to move somebody, or they'll have a couple of decent players playing in their minor league system who, for some teams could be at the NHL. But Juulsen sticks around here for another year looking for more opportunity. We got word today as well that the Chicago Blackhawks are not re-signing Corey Crawford. Apparently Stan Bowman made an announcement that he and Crawford had a bit of an emotional talk, and he broke the news to him that they were not going to be offering him a contract. There was speculation before they were having contract negotiations, so maybe they just couldn't come to terms on the right kind of price and the right role as well, because I know Crawford was adamant on being a starter. Maybe Chicago was willing to give him a cheaper contract as a backup. Maybe he didn't want that. I don't know, but regardless, they've decided to part ways. So Corey Crawford is officially gone, and they also did not qualify Malcolm Subban. So Chicago doesn't have an NHL goalie. They have Colin Delia under contract with very limited experience. So, Chicago was hard after Matt Murray before he was traded to Ottawa. So they're going to be on the market looking for a goaltender either through trade or free agency. There's plenty out there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But right now, Crawford and Subban both, we know, will not be back for next season. Now, like I said, there's also some other very interesting players that were not given qualifying offers that will become UFAs. One of the more notable ones was Ottawa Senators forward Anthony Duclair, who had a bit of a breakout season, really found his game since arriving in Ottawa. He had some stretches of inconsistency too, but still, it was the best hockey he's played as an NHL player. He wasn't even owed a big qualifying offer. He decided to represent himself as well instead of using an agent, and apparently talks didn't really go all that well, and the Senators decided to not qualify him, which is kind of weird. Do you think they would have at least qualified him to continue negotiations? Because he is arbitration eligible, or would have been, and clearly they wanted to avoid that. They probably figured arbitration was going to award him more money than they would have wanted to pay, but at the same time, you do have the ability to walk away in some circumstances. So anyways, not really, it's kind of a head scratcher really in that scenario, but Duclair probably is done in Ottawa, but maybe depending on what else they can find up there in the market, maybe he returns. I'm not sure. They have plenty of young forwards they can give the opportunity to as well. I'm not sure Duclair would have been there a super long time, but he was a really solid player for them last year, so it's unfortunate that things didn't work out on the qualifying side, but we'll see what happens. But some other names out there as well, besides the ones we already mentioned. Dominic Cahoon in Buffalo. Doesn't mean he's done there in Buffalo either. He very well could still sign, but maybe less than his qualifying offer. But he probably feels he can get more money. Obviously, they decided not to do that, which I thought, again, was a little odd, given the fact that he was a decent forward for them. But I guess we'll see. So he's out there on unrestricted free agency now, or will be as of tomorrow. You've also got a couple of players in Toronto like Jeremy Bracco and Freddie Gauthier were not given qualifying offers, so they're out there as well. They likely do not return to the Leafs organization. Same with Evan Rodriguez, but there is a possibility that they bring Rodriguez back for less money than what his qualifying offer would have been, because there was interest there, just not for that price tag. And another one in Chicago as well, Drake Caggiula also was not given a qualifying offer. So, he's one of those players who's, done okay, but certainly not the most consistent. So we'll see what the future holds for him. The Dallas Stars also announced that Anton Khudobin and Corey Perry and Matthias Janmark will all be testing for agency. So it means they could possibly be scooped up and may leave the franchise. Hard to say, but I can understand why Khudobin might want to test the market. I thought they'd come to agreement with Corey Perry a little bit faster. Given how he played in the playoffs, didn't have a great regular season, but still, they also did confirm as well that Rick Bowness will be staying on and will be the full-time permanent head coach of the Stars moving forward. He did a great job leading them all the way to the Stanley Cup final. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. All kinds of great players on the free agent market, which will get underway tomorrow. So we'll likely be back later on with another video with some more news and rumors, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.